meeting, and members of the reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note that this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal possessions. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking. Right. My name is Councillor Barnes and I am chairing this meeting. Presentations to this subcommittee are not given under oath. However, I would like to remind all parties that the highest standards are expected and any deviation to these high standards could possibly influence any decision of the committee. Perhaps my colleague could identify themselves.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Karen Lawrence.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Louis Stephen.
There are no other councillors present. Could the Legal and Democratic Services personnel please introduce themselves?
Good morning, I'm Vanessa Brown, I'm the Legal Advisor.
Okay. And other people who want to be heard by the subcommittee for the Worcester Regulatory Services?
Nikki Jones, licensing officer.
Right, I understand the applicant is not present.
That's correct, Chair. I understand that there is an email that's been sent to indicate that the applicant isn't going to be in attendance. You do have all the paperwork, I think, within the documents that you have.
And we have a representative of the public.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Inman. I'm clerk to the Lussetts Trustees, the objector to the application.
Thank you very much, sir. Right, legal services.
Chair, thank you very much. Members had indicated that although they are very familiar with the area, it would be very useful for them to conduct a site visit, just so that they are very clear of the area that the application applies to. Members, I'd suggest that that is something that you do now. Simply yourselves, and I will attend. I'm going to invite the licensing officer simply so he can be very clear with you exactly where the tables and chairs are proposed within this application. So, Mr. Imar, if you don't mind remaining here, and I don't anticipate, members, that you'll be terribly long. There'll be no discussion with regards to this. It is simply to go and have a look at the site so that you're clear in your minds as to exactly where the applicant would seek his application for the tables and chairs.
Thank you. I suspect this will be 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, quite a short period of time, as it's very close by. So we're adjourning. Thank you. Thank you. As the applicant isn't present, we can't obviously ask any questions of that person. So could the Officer representing Worcester Regulatory Authorities make a statement, please?
Outline the circumstances for you. The meeting has been called to consider and determine an application for a new street amenity permission in respect of the Thai Gallery 22 to 26, 22 and 26 to 32 Friar Street in Worcester. On the 29th of March this year, 2022, the council received an application for a street amenity permission from Mr Sergio Dottori, owner of Thai Gallery, Friar Street, Worcester. A copy of the application is attached to the report as Appendix 1. The application is seeking permission to place 19 tables and 38 chairs on the public highway. The street furniture is to be located directly on the pavement outside 26 to 32 Friar Street, on the pavement opposite to 26 to 32 Friar Street, and on the pavement outside number 22 Friar Street. Mr Dottori has confirmed that he is currently the leaseholder for 22 Friar Street. A plan showing the location of the proposed furniture is attached to the report as Appendix 2. The applicant has indicated that he wishes to use street furniture every day between the hours of 9:30 to 11 p.m. Officers can confirm that the application was submitted correctly and has been advertised in the correct manner by way of a public notice, which has been displayed on the site for 28 days. Licensing Office, in line with the street amenity application, has also consulted with a number of statutory consultees, these being, as per the list there, including West Mercia Police, Fire and Rescue Service and the Highways. During consultation period, no objections were received by the Council from any of the statutory consultees. In response to the public notice, an objection has been received by the Council from Laslitz Charities. Laslitz Charities owns and manages the almshouses on Friar Street. The almshouses provide accommodation for 17 elderly residents and is located immediately opposite 26 to 32 Friar Street. In their letter of objection, Laslitz Charities have stated that should permission be granted for the council, by the council to place street furniture in this location, it will have an adverse effect on the quality, the living quality of their residents who are already experiencing regular late night disturbance. A copy of the letter is attached as Appendix 3. Office records show that the premises Thai Gallery has previously held a street amenity permission for street furniture directly outside 26 to 32 Friar Street for 5 tables and 10 chairs. The permission expired on the 6th of May 2022. That date was before the preparation of this report. That licence has since been renewed. Office records further confirm that the premises Thai Gallery has also held a pavement licence for 4 tables and 20 chairs for the pavement area opposite 26 to 32 Friar Street. That licence expired on the 30th of September 2021.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions for that officer?
Chair, I don't know if it would assist, just there's reference to the fact that a previous consent has now, since the writing of the report and the application, has now been granted. I don't know if it would assist members if we invite the officer just to mark on page 13 of your papers exactly what is already has consent, so that that doesn't form part of your deliberation today. Graham, I've got the map here. I don't know if you want to mark on that where exactly, across through, anything that's already subject to a consent, because as I say, that won't form part of your deliberation. That has separately already been authorised. Does that help you? I think it's that. I think it's those that...
Councillor Stephen.
I've got a question for the officer, Graham Rowbury. I understand there is a street licence for, due to COVID conditions, for the, I think, 4 or 5 tables on the other side of the road from Thai Gallery. We just had a site visit, and it looks like that permission, although it may have been granted, maybe isn't actually being used at the moment. We don't see much evidence of there being any stored tables there, or the hedge is now quite overgrown. I'm suspecting that it hasn't actually been used. Can you just confirm whether it is actually a licence which is actually, although perhaps being applied for, is perhaps not even actually being used at the moment?
Think again up, sorry. Thank you. The area opposite the premises, across the highway effectively from the premises, was subject to a pavement licence, and that licence has expired. The street amenity consent for 5 tables and chairs actually applies on the same side of the premises, and was those, although there were no tables and chairs there, the area was set out ready for those to be done.
Okay, so just to confirm then, that temporary licence or permission has actually expired for that on the opposite side of the road.
That's correct, yes.
So again, for clarity, the tables that are proposed for outside number 22, and 4 of the tables that are extra outside 26 to 32, and the tables across the street by Laslet are all for our consideration. The other ones are not.
I'll provide you with a map just to confirm, but members on page 13, yes. The officer has crossed out those that are currently already have a consent. It's an extension of that is part of your application. 4 further tables and chairs further down the road and those opposite.
Right.
I'll ensure that you have that just so that it's very clear, and I'll ensure that the objector is aware also, and we can provide him with a copy as well, so that he can see which are already currently subject to a consent and not part of your deliberation.
Right, thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, I noticed that there's this pedestrian foot path marked on there. Who's responsible for putting those markers out? Would that also be the applicant rather than to mark the replacement pavement? Pedestrian walkway. Is that for pedestrians to go through that, or is that part of what they're asking for as their pathway, if you see what I mean?
Yeah,
There. Is that for the Thai Gallery applicant to use?
Yeah.
And that's the footpath, or is that normal pedestrians to replace this pathway?
My understanding of the plan there is that 4 planters will be placed along that. It's not a boundary. You saw it yourself. It's cobbled. It's cobbled differently to the rest of the highway to make it stand out. My understanding is that those 4 planters should be on that and not in the highway. Those planters are part of the amenities that have been requested by the applicant.
So the further row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 posts that are shown with line in between, is that actually going to be a physical barrier, or is that just to indicate the? If you see what I mean, this,
Yeah.
Is that actually going to be a physical barrier, or is that just indicating that pedestrians do that?
Comparing it with the other side of the premises, the other side of the street where the premises are, I would suggest that there is no barrier between those planters. On the other side, you can see that there is a definite double line between the planters on that side, where the buildings are. My understanding would be.
So maybe it's these that they're intending to put up there.
Yeah, that would be my understanding. Yeah.
So actually going quite a bit beyond. Well, that is sort of paved.
Halfway onto the road.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon. When you indicated the smaller.
Yes,
On
and
the
so I
right
was
there.
wondering if these.
Yeah, my understanding is that those are the, for want of a better word, fabric
Yeah.
barriers.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking you've got quite a lot. You've got the pavement here, so that's encroaching quite a bit further than the actual.
No, I believe that's distancing.
I don't think I think they also say that this doesn't appear to be part of the application.
Oh, okay. Even though it's shown.
No, I wouldn't understand that to be part of the application. No, that would be clearly. Was that raised with you?
Which is why I wondered if it was a...
It looks as if it's a barrier,
It does look like it's a barrier.
No, 'cause it's-
in which case it would, to have a,
It's out into the roadway as well, I'm thinking.
Sorry, that hasn't been considered as part of the application, no.
wouldn't it be appropriate to have a row of temporary bollards in the middle of a road?
No, I think that is, yeah.
I don't know whether it's a matter that we could, I think it's something that you may want to ask clarification, whether the matter stood down just for 3 minutes to see if the officer can ask just for clarification from the
I think
applicant
we do need that.
to establish what exactly that is and what it's intended, because the application that you've got is for tables and chairs, so that wouldn't necessarily fall within the application, but I think it would assist you to have clarification. Do you want to stand the matter down for 5 minutes and just to see
I
if the...
think we need clarification before we can pursue it, because this map seems to suggest that there's going to be a new temporary pedestrian route.
Let's ask, can stand the matter down, Chair, and we'll invite the officer just to go and make an inquiry. And whilst we do that, I'll ask our committee service officer if she wouldn't mind photocopying the marked copy of the plan, so I can ensure that, that Mr. Emma has it as well. Thank you.
second time round or third time round? We asked a question earlier about the definitions on the map. Would you be able to give us an answer at this point?
We've tried to contact the applicant, councillor, but there's it's straight to voicemail. So no is the answer. We cannot clarify what that line is intended to be. But the applicant's intention for that, whether yeah, that's the quick answer. No, we haven't been able to establish from the applicant what that line is intended.
Okay, I think we will need to move on then. And the representation, I believe we have somebody speaking on behalf of the objectors from Laslet. If you'd like to.
Indeed, yes. It's disappointing the applicants aren't here because some of the questions that I've got for them might also have helped you and your colleagues. And on this particular point about, I'll come to the generality of the objections in a minute, if I may, or later on in the procedure. But a question that I would put to Mr. Rowbury is the plan at Appendix 2, page 13, shows, I'm primarily concerned, as you might imagine, with the 6 tables adjoining Laslet's boundary. Just as a pure aside, I may say, Mr. Laslet is also in attendance with that picture up there. That is my prime concern. On the map, it's quite clear that the tables are as close to the boundary as they possibly can be, in order, no doubt, to maximise the availability for pedestrian vehicular use of Friar Street itself. I'm glad you've carried out a site visit because today, and if you hadn't, I've got a picture, albeit from Google Maps, showing that, of course, the boundary is not simply, well, the legal boundary is no doubt a line on the map, but in fact, there is quite a substantial privet hedge there. The privet hedge, even in this Google map of 2015 or 19 or whenever it is, extends out some way. And in fact, on this particular photograph here, again, courtesy of Google, which is probably not evidence in itself, but the hedge extends almost to the line of those bollards. So there is a question about responsibility and liability for the hedge, because in broad terms, the street amenity is, I would say, enhanced by that hedge, and to remove it or to cut it back severely to what is, I imagine, some kind of fencing behind would not be something that was reasonable, and I would invite you to take that into account. If that is so, then this point of Friar Street becomes a pinch point, and therefore I would ask the officer, and indeed, had there been any, I'm not sure, I appreciate the Highway Authority also has an opportunity to comment, but this may be a detail that they overlooked. But it seems to me, and the question I put to the officer is, does the plan that is presented accurately reflect what is there on the ground?
With respect, I don't think the officer is in a position to comment on that. There may have been questions that the applicant may wish to comment on, but I don't think the licensing officer can. Licensing facilitate this process and ensure that the application is properly advertised and is presented before you, but I don't think the officer is in a position to pass comment on the substance of the application.
Thank you.
I will simply ask you then to note it.
Is there anything else you wanted to say?
If you're going strictly through your procedure, certainly later on. But I don't know, that there's quite a few things to go through, I think, and to give it to me as the objector. But no further questions to the officer.
No, that's fine. Okay. In that case, we don't have officers from the highways or police or others, so it is your turn to speak.
Thank you very much, members of the panel. Just by way of background, I'm sure you'll know already that Laslet's Charity is an old established Worcester one. The almshouses go back and currently date from 1912. As your report correctly says, there are 17 units of accommodation there, and there are, by coincidence, 17 residents there, although they are generally two-bedroom flats. The flats that you are primarily concerned with are two blocks which appear on your map. Block number 1, which incorporates flat numbers 1 and 4, is on the corner of Union Street and Fry Street. And block 2 is, can I put it like this, is sideways on to Friar Street. But therefore, when you view it from looking northwards and looking from the south, it's the left-hand side of that pair. Number 5 on the ground floor and number 7 on the first floor. Those are the ones that look out immediately look out over the street. I should add, of course, that though those are the ones that immediately look out over the street, the activities in Friar Street, and in particular the noise levels, affect all of the residents in Laslet's almshouses. The residents are generally of independent living, and indeed that is a prerequisite of their being housed there, and they are aged from 65 and at the present time to 93. However, they are fit and able residents and they enjoy living in a city centre. However, the objection which is set out in the letter which is in your papers revolves essentially around the fact that there are these tables which immediately adjoin the boundary, and secondly, the question of the time for which the permission or licence would operate, which is until 11:30 in the evening. The flats themselves, and you may have seen from your visit, despite the privet hedge, generally front onto the gardens of the almshouses. So therefore, we are concerned in this case with those two blocks of their rear premises. However, generally it is their lounge that faces the garden away from Friar Street, so it is generally bathrooms, bedrooms and kitchens that have windows fronting onto Friar Street and from which there is the greatest concern. Certainly for the ground floor residents of those two blocks, there is a small area of land which you probably haven't seen between the physical wall of their building and the fence, which is a yard, which they are entitled to use and come and go as they wish throughout the day. It's part of their accommodation. The problem here is that if taken literally, and particularly by reference to the plan, where they can be in their yard is within touching distance of a table, bar the current privet hedge. And I think that is of concern because for the period of time for which the applicant requires these tables to be potentially occupied, there is somebody sitting on the other side of the fence immediately. Now, of course, in a full commercial environment, that may not be a problem. But as I'm sure you appreciate, we have the dilemma and the problem of residential accommodation being immediately adjacent to commercial operations and in particular this case a highway. So I think that's important to bear in mind. The residents would say, and in particular those that live in those blocks, that there is a distinction between the general hubbub of people generally passing by along Friar Street, which is very busy at times, and which they have managed which they are happy to live with generally, and somebody sitting maybe at a table as close as this one is to myself, who all day and every day, effectively, can be talking and smoking, which is another possibility, which cannot be banned as it is outdoor. But I think the sheer proximity, a combination of noise, noise which I have to say inevitably, as the evening wears on and we approach 11:30, conversations and noise which can generally be very loud. And I think this transgresses the bounds of reasonableness given the nature of the residents that are living there. So I think that is an issue as well. Had the applicants been here, and this is, I would imagine, entirely in your discretion, and your legal officer will probably tell you whether this is or is not relevant. I'm trying to find an example of where one of these street amenity licenses or permissions allows tables to operate on the other side of a highway, other side from where the main premises are. Obviously, there are countless examples of where tables and chairs are immediately adjoining the premises. But if the applicants are intending to serve food and drink, and I've looked at their menu and it's an extensive one, up until 11:30 at night, there is the opportunity for food and drink, and sometimes hot drinks and hot food, to have to be taken across to people sitting at tables and chairs. And I do question, as probably an ancillary point, the safety of so doing. But that's not necessarily a matter which was expressed in the letter, but it's something that I feel may just simply be drawn to your attention. So essentially, the grounds are, these tables are far too proximate to the boundary of Laslett's, and in particular the flats that I've mentioned. The noise, the potential for smoke, potential for general nuisance is not one that can be contemplated. I would be putting it to the applicants that given they have interior accommodation and given they have permission already for some tables outside adjoining their premises, and the application is included now for further tables on that side, to which in principle Laslett's do not object. They object purely to the 6 tables that appear on the plan and to the overall, to the time, which is from through until up till 11 p.m. I think that is far too late. These residents enjoy city life, but to have noise 7 days a week, which is what I think the application would seek, goes beyond the bound of reasonableness. And I would invite the committee and your panel to consider the question of those tables, those 6 tables in their entirety, as not being suitable, and as a general, and also for all of the tables to have some limit placed on their hours, particularly in the evening. So obviously you may have some questions for me, but that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really worthwhile comments you've put to us, some of which obviously are slightly outside our remit, but we do bear them in mind. Right, has anybody got any questions for the objector?
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm looking at the plans in front of me at the moment, and obviously, as the plans are shown, there's 9 in front of the Thai Gallery and 6 just outside the Laslett's almshouses. There are also 4 outside number 22 Friar Street, and I noticed in your letter you object to those 4 as well. In terms of the licensing rules, what are your objections to the 4 that are outside number 22? Can you be a bit more specific about that?
Objection only on the question of hours, not in terms of principle. Principle relates to the 6 outside Laslett's only. The time would apply to all of them.
Fine, thank you.
Do you want to make any questions?
I don't know if it's. I've got a question. Who's responsible for controlling that hedge, and what is the reasonable boundary on that? I don't know if you had asked them, or is it not relevant?
I think in practice, Laslett's has taken the view that the hedge belongs to them, and that from time to time it has been cut. We also take the view that the hedge forms part and parcel of the street scene and is in itself very attractive. And therefore, if the suggestion was, as taken literally by the plan from the applicants, that there should not be a hedge, or there should just be the hedge, there should be half a hedge, as it were, with some kind of railings, it would be a complete nonsense. So the cutting of the hedge is done by Laslett's and has been presumably since time immemorial.
Can I just clarify, irrespective of who owns the hedge, it is not within your gift to make any requirement, condition that the hedge is cut. That's outside your remit.
Thank you. Anything else? Does anybody else have questions for the representative? Thank you, that was really useful. Is there anything else from legal services want to add at this point?
There's nothing at this stage, members, unless you want to invite anyone to make a final statement. Just to sum up, then I can give you some legal advice at that point.
Okay. So, is there any final comment you want to make, sir?
No, I think I already had the last word, so I'm very content.
Chair, thank you very much. Members, you've got an application before you. The applicant isn't in attendance. You do have an email that he has sent in to you with comments that you will consider. I'm going to ask Committee Service Officer to hand me a copy because I think I gave you mine, so I can just read that so it is formally, thank you very much, on the record. Just indication from the applicant to indicate he wasn't going to be in attendance today. He says, and I quote, looking at the police report for antisocial behaviour in this area in the last 6 months, there were 3 antisocial behaviour reports at the far end of the street. I think our outside tables will have very little impact on noise. I actually think it will reduce antisocial behaviour when people are walking past. So that is something, you have a copy of that just to part of your deliberation. Members, simply because the applicant isn't here does not in any way change the way that you should approach this matter. You look at the evidence and information that is in front of you. You have a policy with regards to street amenity, tables and chairs. I'll direct you to page 19 of your papers. It is the policy and criteria for considering such applications, and you will see that at paragraph 4 it tells you that the overriding objection of the policy is to ensure the safe access to the area by all users, including pedestrians and emergency vehicles. It goes on to tell you that where the layout may impinge on the pedestrianised only routes, it may be possible instead to place the tables and chairs in a clearly defined area near to but not immediately adjacent to the building or business. Alternatively, if the layout would result in pedestrians being diverted onto the granite thoroughfare, the use of conditions to restrict the days, hours of operation may be considered. So, members, there have been a number of people consulted in relation to this. There is no objection from any of the effectively responsible authorities, although I understand that, in fact, the licensing authority received only one actual response, and that was from the Worcester Bid, who said they had no objection to this. You have to consider the application. You'll be assisted by the site visit that you did today. Can I remind you, when considering this matter, that part of what appears on your plan is already subject to consent, so does not form part of your deliberation. You take on board what has been said to you by way of objections and what is in the papers that you have and the comments made by the applicant. And it's for you to determine whether some, all, or none of this application is granted. Can I assist you further, members?
Thank you for that good advice. So, at this point, we need to go into closed session?
Yes.
So, if we could do that now. I'm sorry that it's taken so long. We have been in deliberation for some time because of some of the issues. And the conclusion that we've come to is that we are content with the extra seating outside number 26 to 32, which is on the west side, and also on the area outside number 22. So that's the 8 tables on the west side. We are happy or content to give permission. However, the proposals for the east side of the street on a much narrower pavement, we are not content and have decided that that is not an appropriate place for tables to be because of the situation where they would then be tables on both sides of the street, leading to a pinch point. We did look at this when we went to the site visit, and we don't believe there is enough space, particularly for emergency vehicles and vehicles travelling in the evenings where there are less restrictions on vehicular access, and believe that if there was a situation where vehicles and pedestrians were in conflict, the pedestrians may not be able to get out of the way in a timely way. So with that in mind, the east side of the street, we don't believe is viable, and that is our conclusion.
Chair, thank you very much. There will be a formal decision notice sent out confirming members' decision in relation to this, and members to assist, we will attach a plan identifying those areas which had consent prior to your deliberation, those areas that are now have consent, and the area for which members have decided not to grant consent. And we'll attach that to the decision notice so it is abundantly clear which areas now form part of the consent that members have granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your part in this discussion, and we are very minded that it is an area where there are vulnerable residents, and we would be keeping an eye on the situation to make sure that any activity that warrants police or regulatory service action will be followed through.
Thank you all very much.